15-year-old Brock Parks is already attracting attention even before he hits the road racing circuit. The Cessnock teenager has spent 11 years on two wheels, bagging 42 national titles. He's the current New South Wales Junior Speedway champ and the Australian Junior Dirt Bike title holder. Armed with an 80cc Morawaki, he's about to take on a new challenge, road racing.
There's a lot of difference, but it all comes to you. A lot of people come off the dirt onto the road racing, and it's really an advantage.
Brock cites Mick Doohan as his inspiration and hopes to emulate his hero.
I'd love to be world champion one day. That's just a dream that hopefully will come true.
The 15-year-old makes his road racing debut at Goulburn's Wakefield Park next month. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Singleton was dealt a blow late yesterday when the Senate voted against a funding scheme that was crucial to the Red Bank project going ahead.
Where were the Hunter-based senators? Why weren't Senator Tierney and Senator Sandy McDonald supporting our very reasonable amendment? I can't explain for you their view. I just say it's very, very disappointing.
The $200 million project was in line to receive assistance from the infrastructure bond scheme until the federal government decided to move the goalposts. It has now reduced the amount of funding available from $200 to $70 million and changed the eligibility to include only road and rail projects. Labor tried to block the legislation with amendments that retained assistance for projects which had already qualified.
Well, it means at the very least a very dark cloud hangs over it. I'm still hopeful that National Power might see fit to go away and do their sums again.
The project was to have commenced on the 1st of June, creating 200 construction jobs with another 50 permanent positions when operational. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The return of under-21 representatives Andrew James and Jared Heaney had the wildfires at full strength, and it didn't take them long to flex their muscle. Just minutes into the game, fullback Nathan Freese parted West Harbour's defence to score out wide. Moments later, and Freese dived over in the opposite corner, the wildfires 10 ahead after 10 minutes. Jared Heaney built on that foundation, 2 penalties taking the score to 16-0. West had several opportunities to peg back the score, but they couldn't convert their chances or contain the wildfires' defence. West Harbour was all but out of the game when Newcastle crossed again just minutes before the bell. Nathan Cross scored in the corner after making the initial break more than 50 metres up the field. The 21-0 lead was too high a mountain for the visitors to climb, the wildfires going on to record a comfortable win. It completed a clean sweep for the home team and pushes first grade another rung up the competition ladder just outside the top 5. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The winner paid $15, $10 and $4.20. The trifecta $712.90. Racing was also at Randwick. Our best raced 7 over 1,100 metres. The winner paid $7 and $2.60. The minors also paid well, $5.20 and $8, helping to boost the trifecta to $3,383.40.
After a memorable week with Ben Pepper's NBA news, the Falcons were keen to impress, but the warm-up mustn't have been long enough. It took half a dozen shots before the first points were scored through Scott McGregor. 2-0. It turned out to be Newcastle's only time on the right side of the scoreboard. David Simmons was reacquainted with his old teammates before Andrew Gaze ran the Tigers to a comfortable lead and Mark Bradke increased it. Ben Melmoth followed the example, but it wasn't the start the locals were hoping for, down 12 at the first break. If Newcastle was dreaming for a comeback, Leonard Copeland did his bit to destroy it before the Falcons were given a loud wake-up call from Sean Dennis's words in time-out. It failed to change the trend. The quarter-time deficit exploded to 17 by the main break, and while there were some encouraging second-half pieces of play for Newcastle, the match was always the Tigers. At the end, 98-87 to the visitors, Tony Jensen fouled out of the game in a frustrating night for the Falcons.
The heavens opened on a procession marking the 150th anniversary of the consecration of the first Bishop of Newcastle, William Tyrrell. Those taking part kept their spirits up with a song and counted the rain as a blessing. The procession included church leaders from throughout the Hunter. Meanwhile, Newcastle was no place to be having a bad hair day, with 400 of the region's hippest hairdressers taking part in a competition. Apprentices to senior stylists try their hand with new designs and clip against the clock. A highlight of the competition is the fantasy design. Some of the final works have been in the making for months. Money raised from the competition goes to palliative care in the Hunter.
If dancing is your passion, then head down to the Griffith Duncan Theatre for the 16th Annual Classical Ballet of Stedford. Pupils from more than 30 studios from all over New South Wales and Victoria are competing for prizes. Staggered over 6 days and nights, the event culminates with a gala concert on Saturday night. Alternatively, budding young scientists may prefer a visit to the Newcastle Regional Museum. As part of its holiday calendar, the museum is hosting a series of science shows. With titles such as Bubble and Slime and Push, Pull and Turn, the shows are sure to prove popular with inquisitive minds. Many of the demonstrations use household objects and can be replicated at home. Or maybe not. Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
The Minister met behind closed doors with Maitland's 12 councillors at a specially convened sitting. It lasted just a matter of minutes as Mr Page laid down the law.
There's got to be an improvement in its decision-making behaviour and its general behaviour that's got to serve the people of Maitland, and that if that doesn't occur, that I'll call an inquiry.
The government's intervention follows a turbulent and often bitter 12 months on Maitland Council, which at its height saw one faction attempt unsuccessfully to sack Council General Manager Rhonda Bignell. Formal mediation between the warring factions was a failure. The Minister stopped just short of calling Maitland Council the worst in the state.
In the over 2 years since I've been the Minister, this is the only council out of 177 in which A, I've had a mediator, and which B, I've come personally to tell the council that it has to lift its game.
If councillors fail to settle their differences, a formal inquiry is the last step before the council is sacked and an administrator appointed in its place.
It is the last roll of the dice, and I think he's spelt that out very clearly tonight. And I can tell you, it's no fun being the mayor of a council that's going to be potentially sacked.
The first test of whether councillors take the Minister's warning to heart will come at next Tuesday's full council meeting. If they can't resolve their differences, and quickly, Maitland Council is living on borrowed time. Phil Hind, NBN News.
It was bedlam at the Glendale Crossroads last night. Lake Road traffic was reduced to a single lane, drivers cautiously testing the waters as they made their way through the intersection. Measuring half a metre deep in some parts, the water bubbled over footpaths and gardens, residents seeking the shelter on their verandas. Working against the clock, waterboard crews closed off 3 nearby valves which supply water to the burst trunk main. They then focused on the leak, a split in the half-metre wide cast iron pipe which feeds the West Lake system. Water was diverted from other mains in the area, so supply to local residents was not affected. Repairs were finished late this afternoon. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Six wins on the trot has everyone jumping high in the Mariners camp. The Mermaids put on a special show at this afternoon's media conference, but there's little cheering on the injury side of things. Robbie Ross and Kevin Iro are both out for at least a week. Gavin Thompson fills Ross's position as fullback for the clash with the Rams. Nick Zisti moves to the wing, John Carlaw to the centres, while Tony Iro replaces Willie Poaching in the run-on side. All are predicting another tough game. Adelaide is just 1 point behind Hunter on the ladder after a win over Perth, while the Mariners are looking towards the semis.
Well, we've always thought ourselves as a semi-final team. It's going to be difficult, but if the only thing you can do is keep winning, and that'll put us in there, I'm sure.
The semi-finals may be the long-term goal. The short-term is simply the next two matches. The Rams game is followed by a trip to North Queensland.
Adelaide's going to be probably the harder out of the two sides to beat. Like, they're very strong in the middle, got a couple of good backs running around. And they did a fair job on us last go.
I think we're a better football team than we were this time last round, and I think Adelaide are too.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
$5,000 football fanatics rose with the sun and braved bitter conditions to catch a glimpse of their favourite players. Dining out on ice blocks at the Newcastle Knights breakfast, the crowds roared as the team ran out. The players in turn amazed at the show of support.
Oh mate, it's unbelievable. I can't believe so many people up this early. Guys, I'll never get out of bed till about 9.
The footy show's Fatty Vorton made a brief appearance on the ground, while co-host Sterlo and Knights coach Malcolm Riley took to the skies to entertain the crowds. The two plummeted to the paddock tandem style with a group of professional skydivers.
When it opens up and you fall out, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's the best, only way to start the day.
With the show over, the team got down to business, preparing for this weekend's crucial game against Sydney City.
When we've really got to win, it's going to be a tough game. I just hope the conditions are good.
Making his first grade debut, 20-year-old Mark Hughes will play winger for the Knights against the Roosters.
It's been something I've been striving for all my life, and for it to happen this week, so I just can't wait for the game.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The Interstate Clash is an open-age event held each year as a warm-up to the Australian Championships played between all mainland states and territories at Parks next week. Queensland scored first, right between the posts, but the conversion attempt left a lot to be desired. Then it was New South Wales' turn, crossing over for the next 4 tries in a row, 3 of them to Whitebridge High's Luke Burt. That effort and his conversion rate of 4 from 5 overall earned him the Man of the Match award. The Maroons were not to be outdone though. The appearance of a budding Alfie Langer, number 17, Wade Voltano, sparked his side. Queensland then quickly notched up 4 tries in a row, but the kicking let them down with all of the conversion attempts waved away. The Blues then put the sealer on the match with another try to the number 2 Luke Burt, and that was the only kick he missed. The final score, 28-22.
It was every homeowner's worst nightmare. The Wilson family awoke this morning to discover the land under their house had been washed away.
At 9 o'clock this morning I got a phone call to say that to come home because I've got no more backyard and it's gone underneath my house.
The home is part of a subdivision in the Lake Macquarie suburb of Whitebridge. The family moved to the area from Sydney 6 months ago. Land underneath the rear of the house has continued to subside throughout the day, taking with it part of the next-door neighbour's backyard and cubby house. At this stage, the cause of the disaster is uncertain.
The geotechnical engineers have advised us that the fill that has been placed there and the reshaping that has taken place has been in accordance with good engineering practice.
The next 24 hours will be a critical time for the family. So far, they've been unable to identify exactly who is liable for the damage.
But at the end of the day, it's not my problem. I bought the house in good faith. It's someone else's, but it's going to cost me money and may send me broke trying to legally chase this.
Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
It's a way of life, yeah. I come every fortnight, every Wednesday morning. I'm here at about 8 o'clock.
Interruptions to the Knights' 1997 campaign continue. Coach Mal Reilly is out in charge of the rest of the world team, while Paul Harrigan, Andrew Johns and Robbie O'Davis will all line up for Australia in Friday's test. According to Tony Butterfield, the side is training well under reserve coach Steve Linnane. Hooker Lee Jackson has been dropped to the reserve bench. Brett Clements will fill the void.
Both of them are very good players, and it's a good competition at the moment between the pair of them, and it's something that we need throughout the positions, throughout the grades.
Mark Hughes has been brought into the centres, replacing the injured Matthew Gidley, while Leo Denover again steps in for Andrew Johns.
On August 19, 1949, a converted troop ship carrying migrants fleeing war-torn Europe docked in Newcastle Harbour. Among the passengers on board were Barbara Perry and Ingeborg Tuchinski. These German-born women were only 20 years old when they arrived in Australia on their way to their new home at the Greta migrant camp.
We came from Germany together, we met there, and we've been best friends, neighbours, ever since.
Many former residents of Greta attended the book launch of Christopher Keating's Greta, which tells the story of the historic camp. The site at Greta began as a boot camp during the Second World War and became one of the largest army training camps of this period. In 1949, it became known as a migrant camp and continued to operate as one for the next 21 years.
From 1949 on, the camp was one of the most important migrant camps in the whole of Australia.
Migrant camps such as Greta have been credited with changing the culture and social fabric of Australia and are a significant part of our history.
The lives of tens of thousands of people from the Hunter Valley are quite intimately connected to this camp, so I think this is a timely recapitulation of that history.
Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
In the past, land was cleared to make way for traditional forms of farming, but today 50 farmers learnt that putting those trees back can be commercially viable. A combined effort by the Total Catchment Management Committee and State Forests saw a tour of 3 eucalypt plantations around the Manning, all at different stages of growth. The tour aims to promote eucalypt plantations as a long-term addition to more traditional methods such as livestock grazing.
I think we have to look into the years ahead, of course, generally for the demand for timber. It'll always be there because we import it at the moment. We think we should be exporting it. It's a good economic thing for people to grow on their properties.
And with another timber mill in the region closing down last week due to a lack of resources, the tour organisers believe plantation farming could be the answer for the flagging timber industry on the mid-north coast.
But we only have a couple of mills working. Our major mills are closed because the forestry are not allowed to sell certain trees. So we think that this is an alternative way of providing the timber for the future generations.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
The fire started at midday in the rear bedroom of a double-storey house in Jesmond. The house is occupied by students from Newcastle University. The alarm was raised by one of the students who was alerted by the sound of exploding glass.
I heard a noise upstairs. I heard breaking glass and I came out and I saw some smoke.
The fire is believed to have been caused by a discarded cigarette. Fortunately, the fire brigade were quick to arrive and contained the fire before it spread to other parts of the building. The damage is limited to mainly smoke and water. The 3 university students who live upstairs were out at the time the fire started. Later, one of the students returned home, only to discover the smoke and smouldering remains of what could have been a disaster. Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
For the last 7 months, the elusive Mr Cool has managed to give authorities the slip. Police believe he's responsible for 10 bank robberies, the majority of which have occurred in the Newcastle area. Caught on camera, Mr Cool can be seen carrying the same semi-automatic pistol throughout the hold-ups.
Well, he's very upsetting to the staff. He threatens them quite noticeably with the firearm that he carries, and it does have a very stressful impact on the staff, I would imagine.
Regarded as extremely dangerous by the police, the man's calm, controlled manner during the robberies earned him the name Mr Cool.
I would think by his the way he goes about it, yes, he's very experienced in what he's doing. He seems to plan what he does, and he's certainly someone that knows what he's about.
In his latest heist last week, the man held up the National Australia Bank in Hunter Street, just 2 blocks from the police station. Following his pattern on most of the robberies, he escaped in a waiting car stolen earlier from an auction centre. It's believed the man is aged in his 30s and has netted around $300,000 so far. Police are urging anyone with information to come forward, but warn them not to approach the bandit. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Each day, buses carrying staff and non-union labour who are keeping the mine running are escorted onto the Hunter Valley No. 1 mine by police. But today, a Sydney trucking contractor delivering fuel joined the convoy and ignored the picket.
The truck started to press against the people, which we've never encountered before, and we advised the police accordingly, and he was instructed not to do that.
3 more trucks carrying magnetite, an essential ingredient for the mine's coal washing operations, were turned back. Their Transport Workers Union drivers complying with the mining union's wishes not to cross the picket line.
We've got other vessels that I'd expect to be coming into port in the next couple of weeks, so we'll just have to wait and see how things progress with the Commission. But we fully intend to rail coal as soon as we can.
An Industrial Relations Commission hearing in Sydney today has so far failed to issue orders to Freight Corp to force its train drivers to cross the picket line on the grounds of safety. 2 trains were turned back from the mine last week. Miners will rally in Sydney on Wednesday when the company Rio Tinto and the union are also due to meet at the Commission over the company's bid to remove union-controlled work practices. For now, the standoff continues, but tomorrow there's a mass meeting called at 10 a.m. at the loading point. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The old Grace Brothers site on Hunter Street has been vacant for 8 years. Now there's plans to convert it to an 11-storey luxury apartment building.
It's quite innovative in its design, with, well, you'd have to describe it as unique, I suppose. It's got a fairly futuristic feeling about it.
A Sydney consortium submitted the proposal to Newcastle Council last week. The development would include 67 serviced apartments, 4 penthouses, ground floor parking, a gymnasium and entertainment area. 2 shops next to the site would need to be demolished, and Mr Newton is confident the project will have the support of the community.
Well, when the LATEC house proposal was publicly notified, there were no responses. So we presumed from that the public was quite comfortable with the idea in principle of large-scale apartment buildings occurring in the West End of Newcastle. And I expect we'll have a similar response here.
The building has already been pre-leased, Council claiming that's a sign the development will probably go ahead. The developers are hoping to meet with council soon to discuss the project in more detail. In the meantime, the public has until the end of the month to submit any comments. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.